The unit is Assess Coexisting Needs. This is the learner guide reading. Contents. Here's the list of the contents. The introduction, then preparing for assessment. So that's 2, preparing for assessment. 2.1, assessment process. 2.2, assessment tools and standardized measures. 2.3, gathering information. 2.4, seeking information. 2.5, evaluating internal capability and other service networks. Chapter 3, using a collaborative approach. 3.1, empowering the person. 3.2, evaluating needs and complex issues. 3.3, issues of urgency and eligibility. 3.4, risk factors. Chapter 4, service requirements. 4.1, decision making. 4.2, self-advocacy. 4.3, maintaining information to meet confidentiality requirements. 4.4, providing clients information to other services. Chapter 5, evaluating assessment process. 5.1, seek feedback on assessment process. Chapter 6, test your knowledge. Chapter 7, summary. Chapter 8, appendices. Chapter 9, glossary. Okay. Introduction. Rates of mental health illness are higher for people with complex needs, such as intellectual disabilities, physical disabilities, substance abuse issues, unemployment, homelessness, or those who have experienced domestic violence. Many people with complex needs remain undiagnosed and not effectively connected to mental health services. Counsellors, practitioners, and community health services play an important role in recovery for people with coexisting needs. They use a variety of instruments to assess the well-being and mental health of individuals. The practice of assessment involves the collection of information to identify needs and issues, plan interventions, evaluate clients, and diagnose and inform clients. By using a combination of formal and informal methods, counsellors can prepare a more thorough and accurate understanding of the client and their reason for presenting for counselling services. Preparing for assessment. As a support officer, you need to ensure the best information is gathered so you can use your expertise to define a problem and identify the best solutions and interventions. In community service roles, you may have to assess the existing needs of people. These are likely to be diverse, complex, and multifaceted. They put multi-faced, but I think the word is multifaceted. Assessing them will allow you to recommend internal and external services required to meet those demands. Assessing is about describing and understanding the important issues for a person to keep them safe, prevent them from worsening, and to help whatever has caused the individual to present themselves to the service. It is important to remember during the assessment process that you have a duty of care to ensure not only the client but anyone involved in the services to the client are safe and not harmed in any way that is reasonably possible. Each community service worker has a duty of care towards their clients and may, at risk of breaching their duty of risk, if they behave unreasonable or if they fail to act to prevent any harm to their clients. It's supposed to say may be at risk. So that's legal terms that you need to know and be able to talk about. It is important to remember during the assessment process that you have a duty of care to ensure not only the client but anyone involved in the services to the client are safe and not harmed in any way that is reasonably possible. Each community service worker has a duty of care towards their clients and may be at risk of breaching their duty of risk if breaching their duty of care if they behave unreasonably or if they fail to act to prevent any harm to their clients. Yeah, there was a few mistakes in their version of that paragraph. Although the assessment process is designed to help clients, it can be an intimidating experience for some people. It involves using tests and other assessment tools to measure and observe a client's behavior, which may be daunting for those clients with coexisting conditions. The experience of coexisting conditions often involves socioeconomic hardships, isolation, and lack of personal family and social support at key transition points. Duty of care is a legal and ethical idea that falls under the larger concept of negligence. In principle, if the counsellor does not use the appropriate standard of care and the client suffers additional stress, then the counsellor may find themselves in breach of duty of care for negligence. Assessment process. Community services look out for the welfare of a wide range of people, including children, elderly people, those with physical disabilities, mental health problems, and learning disabilities. They offer a variety of services to help people support themselves. To determine what is the most appropriate service, you will need to use relevant tools to assess people. A needs assessment is a process to gather information in a systematic fashion about issues or needs and determines a process to prioritize those needs for action. Needs assessments serve as the foundation on how health services and practitioners make decisions about where to invest their resources. Information from a needs assessment can help counsellors prioritize identified issues of a client and can be used to inform practice to ensure an appropriate triage process for prioritizing interventions. What is triage? Good time to look that up. Information to complete a needs assessment can be gathered from a variety of sources, both formal and informal. Formal means of gathering information can include psychometric assessments, alcohol and other drugs assessments, specialist reports, and interviews with the client, family, or carers. Informal means of gathering information may include people's observational reports and conversations with associates of the individual and/or other colleagues. Assessment tools and standardized measures can be used to collect information on specific topics, such as substance abuse or mental health. They can identify motivation, dependence, mental health status, quality of life, and the client's risk of harm. Some may also assist clinicians to effectively monitor client progress over time. Brackets, outcomes. Use these tools selectively and employ your professional knowledge and judgment when assessing needs. The assessment process is not viewed as simply a one-time client intake, but rather a component in the whole counselling process. Aside from the counsellor and client, there are several people involved within the assessment process, and they all play different roles and hold different responsibilities. Intake officers have the responsibility of gathering the information that will be needed with the assessment when it is analysed. Health services will have their own assessments that they will use for clients. Depending on the process that the health service provides, the intake officer may be the first contact to the client and may undertake the needs assessment themselves. Many assessment processes can be complex and difficult to interpret, and intake officer may struggle to understand the complexities of the client. However, they will have a basic understanding of what assessment processes they will need to incorporate. The intake officer has a responsibility to ensure that the assessments are correctly completed and that all information is recorded and documented appropriately. Once a needs assessment has been completed and placed on record accordingly, it will then be transferred to a counsellor. Counsellors will firstly be given the results of the needs assessment of the client and analyse this along with any additional information that was gathered from the intake officer. So for your legal responsibility, if you have a sole practice where you have your own room consultation, or it's on Zoom, or it's over the net, you will be the intake officer, and so you'll have to know how to choose the right assessment tools and how to get the information from the assessment tools to help you make the right decisions, always with consent from your client. So your intake officer, you are the intake officer as well as the counsellor. The counsellor will generally have a consultation with the client to further develop an understanding of their issues or concerns. This allows the client to be involved in the planning of any treatments, programs or recommendations, and it will be the counsellor's responsibility to ensure the client consents. The counsellor's role is to then determine the best treatment for the client or provide a referral for specialised services such as a psychologist or a mental health specialist. A case manager's role in the assessment process is to ensure that any treatments, programs or recommendations made are followed up and are responsible for making sure the client's progress and participation in any treatments or programs are successful. Reviewing and evaluating this progress can also support the case manager in looking for any service delivery gaps or adjustments that may be required to maintain the best possible outcomes for the client. During the assessment process, the client has a responsibility in two important areas. Firstly, the client will need to be honest and open in communication when filling in or answering any questions to the best of their ability. Just to make a note here, at this point is when we tell our client that everything they tell us is confidential unless there's a criminal matter. So if they're doing anything that breaks the law, we have to disclose that. At this point, we just inform them of that. So if they really want help to change, they've got to make a decision about what they're telling us, and they also need to make a decision about what they're not telling us. Reviewing and evaluating this progress can also support the case manager in looking for any service delivery gaps or adjustments. It is crucial this information be accurate and ensure the appropriate treatment is implemented for the client. Secondly, the client's responsibilities involve committing to the process after they consent to any recommendations of treatments, programs, or referrals. If the client is not ready or willing to commit to the recommendations, then the process may have negative outcomes and may result in negative impacts on the client in their recovery. Next recording will be formal and informal assessments.